Hey all, Brian here. Welcome back to the regular programming of the Boston Art Podcast with just me and Theo this week, debriefing from the last 7 episodes and unpacking some of the things we learned. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the Boston Art Podcast,
Boston's premier art podcast,
where we talk art, culture, and philosophy.
My name is Theodore Earthworms.
And I am Brian Huntress.
Welcome to the show.
Alas, we are here again.
Alas?
I don't know.
I'm excited.
It's been so long. Okay, maybe we should start this off by saying that was nice. If our listeners are jamming out and getting into the podcast in chronological order, that means that they have just completed the episode 7 of the Touching Roots series.
Yeah.
It's all done. We did 7 episodes focusing on a MFA exhibition at the Museum of Fine Arts, Boston. That was cool. What do you think about that? Theo, how'd it go?
I think it went really well. It was a lot of fun. We learned a lot. It was the first time that we've done something that immersive. It took a lot of time recording, editing, writing for the blog, learning studio visits, phone calls. Like, it was a very orchestrated affair for us. It was like a mini documentary series, deep dive. That was really, really cool, and we got to speak to some people that are really interesting, really intelligent, have really cool projects going on. Overall, I felt like I just took a college class. It was pretty great.
Not only do we feel like the guests educated us a lot and taught us so much, but I also feel like it was a very interesting kind of like crash course in like different types of like professionalism and production. Like, I just felt like we, like the blog, for example, or the extra production writing that went into these episodes, I felt like we were just doing that. Like, you know, we were doing these intros and blurbs and making sure we were like, you know, including additional information and additional reading and this and that. Like, you know, we were trying really hard to make it very robust, you know? And now I almost can't see us releasing episodes in the future that don't contain that same amount of like background.
I agree.
Like, I feel like we accidentally taught ourselves a lot more about production and journalism and how to accurately
story.
And a more so that was pretty sick that it happened that way.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't expect it, because like, you know, I don't know if we talked about this when we announced the project or on any other parts, but when we initially interviewed Martina Tango for episode 1, we thought that would be the only thing we did regarding that. We thought we were just going to go there, talk about the show, get to know her and her background and what she's about, and get into, you know, and then be like, that was great, all right, bye, moving on. But little did we know we were about to embark on a fucking, you know, pretty, like, just an adventure of interviews and different content and perspectives, and learning more, not just about art and the world and history, but also about Boston. Learned a shitload of shit. What am I doing? We learned a shitload of shit about Boston, I feel like. Yeah. And definitely opened up some very raised some very deeply interesting questions about this city that our podcast is kind of inadvertently becoming a large, massive portrait of this town.
You say inadvertently, but I feel like that's what we set out to do. We set out to cover artists and to cover art, but like, we're really putting together just this gigantic, eclectic portrait of Boston. We try, man. We're trying to do that, and that's another thing, another question that has been raised, you know, behind the scenes that me and you have talked about a lot, is why
why are we the Boston Art Podcast? Is that good? Is that, like, are we doing right by that mantle? And no, not completely, you know? Like, we're doing our best, but, like, there will always be more. And we could probably do this for our whole lives, and we won't have the whole story.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much.
Well, I think that's true anytime that you step to the plate of trying to speak for a group, which wasn't really consciously what I felt like we were doing when we first started, but maybe, I don't know. I don't want to get into that. We talk about that all the time.
It's tough to get into, you know, because we don't want to be too self-critical. We don't want to think too like cerebrally about what we're doing. We just want to keep our heads down and toil away and interview cool people, right?
Yeah.
You know, we don't want to get too crazy about, like, the meta shit. So we're doing our best. We had so much fun and learned so much. And also, would you talk about, or like, do you think it'd be interesting to talk about some of the difficulties and anxieties surrounding the project as well? Because for me, like, I was so worried that we were just that I was just doing a terrible job.
Oh.
Like, and it was just a wasted opportunity by me, and that if I was different or if I was smarter or something, then it would have been like this outstanding, amazing interview series.
Well, I think,
do you know what I mean?
The people that we were speaking to were carrying most of the content. Like, we were coming to learn from them and to hear about what they do. So, yeah. I don't know. I think that can be an insecurity that you feel in any interview, really, of, like, maybe this person should be talking to someone who's more qualified or someone who knows what they're talking about more intimately, or has been, like, we spoke to people that are college professors or people that have been in the gallery circuit for a long time, curators, people who work with museums, and we aren't any of that. But I mean, I don't know, that's part of what we do, is kind of asking those questions. So I don't know, are you asking if I feel that way?
Oh, I don't know. I guess I was just offering up my own feelings about it.
Yeah.
If you had any thoughts, feel free to share. But I don't know. I mean, it was just such a good experience. But I'm not, like, looking back thinking, like, oh man, like, I'm a dumbass. Like, why? Or I'm not thinking anything like that. But I'm just thinking, like, almost along the lines of, like, I don't know, actually. I don't know what I'm saying.
I think it was a really good learning experience for us in terms of, like you were saying, kind of production, and maybe, I don't know if it was because of this series specifically, or if it was just kind of a tipping point for us. We were like, this is a really big project. We're talking to people that we really, really respect, and we want to do a good job. So we kind of tightened some loose ends that maybe in the past we haven't had the bandwidth to do. Another thing, too, that I think was really perfect about it is that the timing coincided with me having more time than I usually do. Like, we've talked, it's been kind of a while now, but we've talked pretty infinitely over the course of the podcast about juggling art projects, like art making, with podcast creation, interviews, journalism stuff, and actually having day jobs and paying the bills.
Yeah. So
it was perfect timing for the two of us, in the sense that we were able to just, for the most part, work with people's schedules and just slam on interviews for a while. And then once we had done that, in, like, the course of a month, edit for another month or however long. Like, we've been in the process of working on this since the end of August. It's been a lot of emails, a lot of scheduling, a lot of recording, a lot of editing, a lot of research after editing. So considering we're a 2-person team with no funding,
yeah,
it's a pretty fucking big accomplishment. And also the icing on the cake being that we were able to kind of, I feel like it's a huge honor that we were able to cover Touching Roots, because that exhibition and the talks that surrounded it and the news coverage of it and the work itself was a huge accomplishment for the people involved as well. So it was really exciting to be part of that in the small way that we were. Yeah,
we just got to hop in. Like, it's funny, because I don't know if we've talked about this a lot, but the Netflix show Midnight Gospel, which is just a random, like, 1-season animated show where the main character is like this alien that travels to different dimensions and universes and interviews other like aliens.
Yeah.
And that, it's funny because that was initially like a little bit of an inspiration.
It was on the mood board for sure.
It was on the mood board for Boston Art Podcast, just thinking about that show. And it's like, I'm now realizing that I'm not 100% sure why I was bringing this up. I'm a very good podcaster.
I don't know if this is what you were going to say, but something that makes me think about is like when we first started this project, which is coming up on 2 years ago now, very soon actually. Fucking side note, we're like a month away from our 2-year anniversary of weekly releases. So fucking go for us. Except for that brief period of time we were bi-weekly, but fuck that.
Yeah, we've taken a couple short hiatuses here and there.
One hiatus and a period where we were doing bi-weekly.
Yeah.
But
I was
keep
thinking...
getting better at it.
Yeah.
Before we move on, though, I just wanted to say that I feel like before, our format was a lot more casual. Like, it was never something that we didn't take seriously, but I think that there was sort of an imposter syndrome thing going on, at least for me, of, like, having... Like, we didn't have an intro for a really long time. That was maybe last year that we started doing that.
Yeah, it's true.
We didn't edit anything. We didn't send anything out to anybody to help us with sound quality. We didn't, like, reach for interviews that were beyond our social sphere. Like, we were just kind of recording conversations with us and people that we were friendly with. Not necessarily just our friends, but people that were in the same social sphere as us. And then slowly branched out of that, slowly started meeting more people, and it was kind of a gradual climb until this point. And I feel like we keep using the term educational and talking about how we were trying to step up the game and everything, and I don't want that to sound like, I don't think anybody thinks this, but just to clear the air, I don't want it to sound like we didn't feel that way with the other interviews that we've had, but just thinking about how far we've come, like, I don't know, we've talked about this part before, that like both of us have dropped out of college, and that being in spaces where you can talk about art and get into philosophy of art making and identity and the reasons why you're working, like that was a big part of the reason we made this podcast, is to have access to conversations like that again without having to take out student loans and go to fucking like a university. And when we first started, also a lot of museums, a lot of them still aren't, but a lot of them weren't doing in-person lectures. You couldn't go to events or anything because of the pandemic. Like, that kind of experience was sort of restricted to the internet, which isn't the best place to have a round table discussion where you can jump in as someone who doesn't know anything. Like, I would rather die than ask a stupid question on a Zoom call.
Oh yeah, with the pauses and the interruptions, and then you finally get your chance to speak and you just say something fucking dumb.
Yes. So I feel like it's kind of crazy that kind of exploration, and like starting out with like our influences being like Midnight Gospel and like Channel 5, which I'm still heavily influenced by both of them.
Shouts out to Channel 5.
Yeah.
You will never hear that shout out, but such good content.
I wish. I would love that. That's a side note, but...
Speaking of which, we're going to see him live December 16th. That'll be fun.
That'll be fun. But I was saying, I feel like it's crazy to see that we've come from that starting point to literally talking to people about the things that they're most passionate about, the things that they teach at these college institutions. Like, it's almost a full circle moment, I guess, and that's why it feels so educational and so transcendent, because it's high level shit and high level people and very quality information that is not easily accessible, and it's an honor that we were looped into that. And we would love to do it more.
Yeah, something I want to add on to that too is that I feel like a problem we had early on, or not necessarily a problem, but I feel like an angle or limitation that was happening with us in the very beginning was something that we had no way of knowing at the time. But I think that we had that kind of hubris and, you know, light arrogance about, like, we're the Boston Art Podcast, LMAO, was because the only parts of the art world locally that we had experience with and direct engagement with was a little bit, you know, was with either local DIY stuff, or with very elitist exclusionary stuff.
Yeah.
Those were the only two things we knew about. We knew about very hyper-capitalist, big money, high-end retail shit in Boston.
Which we were not in.
Not talking about anybody in specific either. I'm just generally referencing the the art market.
If you know, you know.
Well, not even that, but I'm just saying, like, that's what we thought. That's what we knew about. We knew about galleries that sell fucking Basquiats and shit, and about random people who are named like my friend Skunk is having an art show in his apartment. Yeah. Like, those were the two things that we were really thinking about. But
which, as a side note, that's the kind of art show that I was in when we first started.
Yeah, same. And that's nothing.
That's the tier that
there's nothing wrong. It's like whoever you are, like go off. It's all good.
Yeah.
But what we have come to discover through this podcast and many of the interviews is we have found people, a part of larger institutions or a part of larger operations, that are not just trying to exploit people and make money and fucking be douche canoe rich people that are like, oh yeah, like I remember when I bought my first Warhol or some dumb shit. Like, that's not, and it's like, if you own a Warhol, congratulations, that's great. But like, I guess what I'm saying is that, like, we have found a circuit of people who are a part of these things that want to help people and want to make the city beautiful and to put the spotlight on people, like people with like a real dope ass mission that isn't fucked up, exploitative, self-serving, like, because that's how we saw it. We had a little bit of cynicism.
I think that's true.
Where we thought that that's how the world was. That's how museums are. They're all just a bunch of rich bozos or something. But that's not how it is. Completely. That's just not the whole picture.
Yeah.
Maybe it's part of it, whatever. But there are people in the art world and in the creative world, or I don't know, just that are real ones, that are dope ass people that want to create and paint a holistic picture of the world and the communities that these museums serve or these galleries serve. And that's the kind of shit that we are into.
Yeah.
That's like, we love that. And the reason that we didn't cover that stuff before is because we were just...
maybe not as connected.
We're just fucking around.
Maybe connected is a stupid word, but like, I think that there was a little bit of sour grapes. I'll speak for myself right now, because whatever, but
yeah.
I think I had a little bit of sour grapes about having to leave school, which is very old news to me now, but at the time it was a really raw thing of like needing to work and feeling like college and art school was something you could only do if you were rich, and that people only cared about it because it was like a fun thing to do. Like, just this notion that nobody else got it, which feels so immature now, and maybe a 22-year-old me would have resented me saying this about them right now, but I think that it's really, really exciting and refreshing to put a positive lens on it, to talk to people that care about art and expression for the sake of art and expression, and care about perpetuating the story and the story of the artist and the perspective of the artist when they're talking about this stuff. Because I feel like expressing individuality and expressing connectedness and finding meaning through art and using art as an outlet for communication has been a common theme with people that we've interviewed. And the more people we meet that see it that way and see it as something inherently human, that is, if you make money at it, that's awesome, that's great, good for you, because we live under capitalism and that's never bad. Well, I mean, capitalism is bad, I just side noted myself, but I think it's very encouraging to meet people that are gonna do it no matter what, you know what I mean?
I 100% agree. Yeah.
And I guess maybe I didn't know if I was one of those people. I didn't know if that was a realistic way to see things, if I was a stupid teenager.
Yeah, and it's like, it's hard to see it in different ways, because like, if you know anything about like the contemporary art world, you probably know about like Art Basel in Miami, or like the Venice Biennial, or like the MoMA, or like these cutting edge New York City galleries, and like this and that. And it's like, when you're not a millionaire, or like, your grandpa didn't invent toothpaste or something, or your great grandfather wasn't like a railroad tycoon, or something, like, when you are a regular person and you just want to make art and see the world and meet interesting people and make some money along the way to support yourself and so you can have a future. Seeing things like Miami Art Basel, or seeing a Jeff Koons fucking sculpture sell for $80 zillion, it like makes you feel horrible and like alienated and so far away. Yeah. And like you can't get by selling your cool ass ceramic mugs.
Yeah.
And that like, you know, you're like, man, like if only I, or something like that. And like I felt like that many times in my life, and I know that many people feel like that right now.
Yeah.
But I guess it's interesting because maybe that's our role. Maybe that's a role that we have that we don't even know about. Of like, maybe it's up to us and people like us to try to illuminate other paths besides being like a high-end retail, like abstract art dealer. Like, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, and if that's the path you're on, like, I'm not trying to say either that that's like some type of dark side bad thing either. Does that make sense?
It does. And here's the thing about it too, is like, I feel like art for art's sake, or art for your sake, is different from the conversation about art as a career path. Because first of all, I just brought up like 80 million different points. Like, art as a career path is an umbrella term that could cover a lot of different things.
So many things, yeah.
Which I'm not even going to elaborate on because we've talked about that before, and the interview series we did recently can even illustrate that. And every interview we've done can illustrate that. I don't think we've talked to anybody who does the exact same thing, and we've interviewed how many people at this point?
Very little are the same.
Yeah, nobody has any 100% overlap, and we've barely scratched the surface of what you can do, even just in Boston as an artist. So there was a lot of bullshit also that both of us probably believed about that in the beginning that we've disproven to ourselves and hopefully others. But I think that you have to think about the end goal. And I know we say this all the time, but like, if you're making art for the sake of making money, maybe making mugs and putting them in a local store or something is a reliable way to do that. But maybe that's also not what you love about ceramics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or maybe it is, and that's great. But I think that it's a lot more convoluted and a lot more complicated than that. Unless it's like, there's art as trade, there's art for the sake of sale, there's art marketing, there's art like photographing your art, all of those skill sets. And then there's, why are you doing this? Why are we doing this instead of finance? Because if it's just to make money and flip shit, I mean, we see this all the time with like random celebrities getting into painting for like 6 months and then dropping it. It's like, it's not, if you're in it just to make money or as a business venture, it is not a sustainable business practice. Most people don't make a lot of money being painters. You know what I mean? And that doesn't mean that you can't, and that doesn't mean you shouldn't. I think that you should if you can. But the reason that people do it and the reason that you stick with it is because you might make something that captures a feeling or an experience that you have, and it might resonate with someone else that feels the same way, and it might make them feel important. Because the thing is, I feel like something that I've dealt with a lot over the course of my artistic career is the idea, this like nihilistic inner voice, this intrusive thought of like, if I don't make this painting, it will not matter, and like nobody will care. And the thing about that that's crushing is that I guess that's technically true, in the same way as if like I died tomorrow, in 200 years nobody would know about it. But that's like horrible. And also, your experiences and voice are inherently important. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like a spiritually and emotionally suicidal way to think about it. Like, you can make your paintings, and it's not bad to do that. And somebody else might see your painting and really care about that, and they will remember that, and they will remember you. And that connection, for me, is why I do it. And why I love talking to people on our podcast about what they do. Because everybody's story, like, thousands of little stories are what make up the culture of a people or an area, or, I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it very well, but...
No, it's crazy, man. Yeah, it's fucked up. Because, like, I like to imagine that, like, it's kind of, it's interesting, because it's almost like you're starting, not you specifically, but with questions like this, you can almost ask yourself what the value of art even is, or like what does it all mean in the end anyway, or something. And it's funny because you look at a Van Gogh or something, you look at Starry Night while you're sitting in the Art Institute of Chicago or wherever the fuck it is. You're looking at this thing and you're like, and you like feel the weight and the magic and the fucking like sublime, like you just feel like hundreds of years of art and culture just exploding in front of you in this literal magic object that just holds so much meaning and cultural value or something, right?
Yeah.
And it's like who, like, and I don't know. And then think of your own art compared to that, and you're like, not even compared to the quality or something, but you think of your own art and you're like, I look at a painting hanging in like my bedroom that I made, and I'm like, what foolish notion it would be to imagine my own art having any kind of weight like that or something, or anybody feeling like that. But there's also the fact that Van Gogh probably didn't feel that either.
Yeah.
He was just some fucking guy.
Yeah.
Making some dope shit.
You know what's fucking weird about Van Gogh? This is kind of a side note, but it's also related to what you're saying, I guess.
Hit me.
He's not that much older than us when he died. Wasn't he like 32?
Damn, that's fucked up.
He's literally just some guy.
Yeah. If I knew some guy who was like 32, and I literally currently know people that are like 35 that make amazing art.
Yeah. That
are just random people, basically. Yo, you know what's fucked up that I've been thinking about recently? A little bit unrelated. So my birthday is in the next week or two.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to me, I guess. Gonna take this to a dark place though, real quick.
Love that.
But I'm turning 27, and my whole life, I've been fascinated by alternative culture and rock and roll and music and this stuff for like forever. Yeah. And I was raised by boomers, so of course, you know, I loved Jimi Hendrix and Jim Morrison and who the fuck sang Me and Bobby McGee? I forget her name. Janis Joplin. I also have the same birthday as Jimi Hendrix.
That's wild.
But yeah, I always thought one day I would grow up and be a rock star and die at 27 and join the 27 Club. Because that's, if you don't know what the 27 Club is because you live under a rock, it is, they're just, for some reason or another, a large group of famous people that had untimely deaths at 27. Maybe that could be completely disproven. Maybe there's an even bigger amount of dead famous people that died at 31.
It's not as romantic, though.
Like, who knows? But the 27 Club is a thing. And it's weird because 27 should be a pretty insignificant birthday. You know, like 16, 21, turning 30. Like, these are significant, culturally significant. But 27, I feel like, is for me because
it's like a cursed age.
Supposedly, if you know, just to state for the record, I don't even remotely want to die at all. I do not have any intention or desire to die.
Just a disclaimer.
Anytime soon. I want to live to be 200. You know what I mean? Like, I'm very much happy to be here. So I don't want to die at 27 at all. And it would be, if I died at 27 and became a ghost, I would look out at the living world and weep.
All right,
that I was not a part of it anymore.
We get it. Right.
I would be a crying, weeping ghost looking through the window,
oh my God,
wishing
stop.
I was. I'm sorry.
What the fuck?
I took it too far.
So it's Brian's birthday this week.
Yeah, if you can't tell, I have some real weird emotional hang-ups about my birthday. All right, I have a bad birthday every year. I'm very emo and sad about it.
That's what we love.
But I have I've had a lot of bad birthdays. All right, so. Whatever. I didn't mean to take it there.
It's okay.
But yeah, I was just reflecting on this whole, like, thinking about Van Gogh being such a young man when he passed away.
Yeah.
It made me think of that.
I brought it to a kind of dark place.
No, not necessarily. I mean, you did say that nobody would remember you and you would be
I didn't say that.
You would be an erased ghost in 200 years.
Well,
or something. I'll like.
All right, fucking. Oh no! Stop. Reverse this.
Okay,
Reverse this now.
My bad.
In a like nihilistic like the world will go on kind of way. That's best case scenario, right?
The world will go on. Yeah, hopefully.
You want the world to go on.
I do.
That's fine.
I do.
But I don't know. I think what I was trying to say with all of that is your art is not without value just because it doesn't have a price tag or a confirmation or guarantee of permanence. Like, that might not be the point right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, to take it back to the discussion about art and value and what it means, like, I think as far as I'm concerned, man, like, it, like, the high-end retail capitalist art world, go ahead, knock yourself out, carry on, that's fine. But it's not like you don't fucking exist or matter if you're not part of it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the end-all, be-all of art.
And here's the other thing, too. There are artists that are at that level that are very established and have their art, like, sold all over the world and can support themselves on it. And that's amazing. But that does not mean... Like, these aren't interchangeable concepts. That doesn't mean that their art is an expression of self or that it's resonating with folks or that... Like, they might be doing commercial art that's abstracts that are not... They're just for the sake of selling. It might be on request. It might be, like craft stuff, like things that you sell in a shop near your house that sell in like a tourist market. Like, they're not the same goal, and neither one is better or worse than the other, but confusing them is going to lead you to endless frustration.
Yes. Wow. Another thing too that's been very eye-opening has been the fact that, like, we've had, or at least me, have like had so much like reverence and been in awe of this idea of being in a museum or having your art in the MFA. And I don't have that yet, and if I do, I hope I do one day. But, you know, like, imagining, like we've now met people that are there that just have their art up there.
Yeah.
We've met curators. Like, we're just, you know, we just went up there, we saw these people doing this great thing, reaching this amazing and beautiful milestone in their life and in their career. And they were very much regular, cool people.
Yeah.
They weren't like wizards and like legendary geniuses. Like, they were that, and because they were awesome.
Yeah.
But like, it wasn't like we just met some very awesome, humble, beautiful people that accomplished a great thing, and they're gonna be able to be proud of themselves for that and then move on with their lives.
Yeah.
It wasn't like...
And accomplish more, most likely.
And accomplish significantly more, I'm sure.
I think that's something that also was really interesting about this interview series, to branch off of what you were saying, is it really changed my perspective. I think a lot about museums. I think I doxed myself a little bit for my old job in ticketing at the MFA, which I did not mention that I had until I no longer had it, but it was in the last episode.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Congratulations on your career. Anyway.
Thank you. You guys don't get to know where I work now, but I was there.
LOL.
And so I think about museums a lot. If you know me personally, you know that I worked there on and off for a long time. So this is like my special interest. Like, I think about museums and what they mean in society, what they mean to artists, what they mean to average people all the time, and I think it's really fun, and I spend most of my social media time on LinkedIn reading about it. But I think it was really exciting to talk to so many people at Eva Greenlight in the museum field in sequence, because if you noticed, we asked not some like hard-hitting questions really, but we asked some kind of brave questions to some people about what they thought about museums and what their job is and what their role is and if they're doing enough. And I think it was really enlightening, because something that I didn't expect to hear, that we did hear pretty consistently from everyone that we spoke to, is to paraphrase, I guess, the resonance of the shared opinion that museums are tasked with protecting cultural heritage, and whether or not they're doing a good job at that, they can't be eliminated, because then we don't have anybody in that role. Which means that they're really important. We should be protecting them, and everybody should be invested in making sure that they're equitable and that they're interesting and that they're well attended, because our cultural history is important. And especially in a place like a city in America where there's a lot of cultures and subcultures that can be represented, more push from people we're talking about Boston right now, people in our city, to represent all voices and to represent all perspectives and all narratives. You have more moments there, more opportunities for that connection that we were talking about. Because one thing about artists is that in a perfect world, an artist would be in their studio creating their work and then supplying it to the people that can get it out there to do what it's supposed to be doing, and finding those people that need to see it or want to see it. And it's impossible for an artist to be an artist, a curator, a editor, a journalist, all of those things at once, and also probably pay their bills and not have a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
So
I feel like it really, this interview series too, like, especially in terms of museums, agreeing with everything you said, there's also the fact, for me, I feel like it just brought me into, like, it brought me down to reality. And it made a lot of the shit just real to me, where in my mind before, I'm also a musician and I love to perform and stuff, like, in my mind, dealing with museums or being in a museum or something like that is like the equivalent of playing a sold out show at Fenway Park or something, or like being on the Boston Bruins.
Yeah. Or
something that it's like this fucking like in the firmament of human experience. Like, that's how I thought of it before, and that's just not true. Like, well, it's a great thing, but it's like also an imperfect institution that is an active player in culture, that is this entity that is trying to make moves and make impacts and change things and change itself. Like, it's like this living, it's like this active living thing that is a member of the community in itself.
Another thing too, to branch off of that, is I think I've always considered museums and educational facilities like colleges and stuff separate, and that is so foolish. Like, a museum is a public, well, I mean, I guess they can be private too, but a publicly accessible educational institution in its best form, best case scenario. Did you know, I don't know if I've ever talked about this on the air or not, but there is, I think it's the I forget the name of the organization, but there's a bunch of different organizations that exist within North America and globally that decide cumulatively what the qualifications for an accredited, or like what an acknowledged museum has to be able to accomplish, and they revise that definition at conferences that they have globally and nationally every year, or every couple of years depending on the group, and that you can go and attend and learn about it and talk to scholars. Like, the museum community is a really big and bustling thing that is very, like, it's an evolving thing, and I feel like that's something that maybe not a lot of people know, and that I have been like slowly learning about. I didn't know until somewhat recently that you can study, like, you can get a master's degree in museum studies. That's the name of a program, right, where you just learn how to be at a museum, and you learn about museum equity and diversity and inclusion and the ways that people want museums to look going forward, to try to train up people to be future curators and directors of these institutions. Like, the idea of gathering and protecting cultural heritage is being gradually redefined as we move forward from it being this kind of like maybe creepy, like late Victorian, like collector thing to do.
Home of the Muses.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like, I don't know. I'm going on a whole different tangent now. I'm sorry, but
whatever. I
don't know.
I think I see what you're saying. I mean, like, we live in a modern world that is redefining what a museum is, or maybe even not redefining it, but trying to remember what a museum is. Because something that I feel like I have really learned about this project too, that is very eye-opening is that before I saw a museum as a cultural institution that is housing the best and most profound and most valuable cultural artifacts that could possibly exist, right?
Yeah.
But and because of that, they felt to me like a church, like they were this home of holy, powerful, magical objects. Yeah. And that's true in some ways. But what's different about a museum compared to something, I don't know, like the Sistine Chapel or something, is that the museum, like a church or a like ancient religious site of worship, like those things are not supposed to change.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be able to change the Vatican. The Vatican is gonna fucking stay like that, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's like this. I guess what I'm trying to say though is that you shouldn't think of museums the way that we think of those places, but we should think of museums the way that you think of your town hall. It's like the town hall of the cultural landscape of your area.
Yeah.
And that the museum is also a living institution, which is like, unlike a church, the church is gonna fucking stay that way.
Yeah.
They're not gonna update the paintings. They're not gonna get new sculptures. It's a fucking house of worship where everyone goes and fucking prays and eats little wafers, and that's that. You know, like I don't know. Well, but like, I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's an element of activism.
Yes.
That the museum makes itself available to, where if there's a problem in your community, you can gather a group of people, educate your community on a cause, and then band together to call your local reps and this and that, or try to make change through, you know, different types. I'm not a professional. I'm not like an expert in this, in activism or something. So I don't know what the fuck I'm saying, but like, that's how museums work, and that when the community speaks, a good museum will want to listen. And that's why you see some museums suffer.
Yeah.
Because they're out of touch, and because the community speaks to them and they don't listen.
And to branch off of that too, like when you're talking about, like somebody thinking about this right now that hasn't thought about it before might be asking, what would a museum be able to take action on? Like when you're talking about local legislation and local politics and stuff, maybe that's like fixing the roads or funding schools and stuff like that. But what can a museum do, right? And I think that is something that is really interesting that we talked a lot about during the Touching Roots series, I think. But I've been thinking about a lot before and since, of when you talk about the responsibility of protecting cultural heritage. That sounds great, right? That's awesome. Like somebody's making art, like we're talking about protecting these stories, these expressions of humanity. Okay, but now there's the subsequent questions of that. Whose culture? Whose work? What artists get to be in that like holy space? What artists were left out, and for what reasons? Yes.
Who is the chooser, the selector? Who is in charge of deciding? Like, who's watching the watchers?
Yeah. Like something that was a really like gut-wrenching but eye-opening example of that, something that we spoke to, was when we were talking to Karen Hampton, and she said that when she was in grad school studying weaving, she wanted to look to her predecessors to see like the history of African American women in textile arts in America. And what that route brought her to was, first of all, a huge absence of research and information, just not anything to really find at the time. And then when she did do the research herself, which we have linked on our blog that she gave us the information for, that brought her to slavery in the United States. And I think that's a difficult thing to talk about, but I think it's important to, because when we're talking about like heritage and artwork and people in Boston that have this money and this like gilded fame and whatever, and like my great-great-great-grandfather invented this, and he was a painter, and then his son was a painter, and his son was a painter, and now I'm a painter. Like, not everybody had the same starting point 4 or 5 generations ago, and I think that's a really important thing to think about too, because a lot of these museums started out in, I think the Museum of Fine Arts was created in the late 1800s. I think the location they have right now was built in 1910, if I remember correctly. It's not the same fucking world right now, and there's still more action that we can take even today. So when you think about equity and about the work that we consider to be like something that should be reverent, it's not like everybody is at the same starting point, and not like every background is being represented in that. And then when we're putting our foot forward and saying, this is the best of Boston, this is the art world, this is the most beautiful things we have, not every person is going to walk in there and see their story and have that moment of connection like we were talking about earlier. And I think that's changing, and a lot of museums are taking action to change that. And I think that the MFA, Touching Roots, is a really great example. And that's why it was such a resonant exhibition for some people in our community, which is fucking awesome. And I think that there should be more action that way. But when we're talking about, like, you getting involved in your museum, you caring about this stuff, and why this shit is so exciting, and why there's room for activism within that, that is that piece. That is the way that museums can improve, and that is the stuff that people should be involved in. There is a politics to it, you know? And what can be lost if people aren't invested and aren't putting that pressure there is that cultural history, which is being created right now by people that you meet anywhere. Like, the artists in Boston at the moment are the future history.
Yeah.
And I think that's all really fucking exciting.
I do too. And I also don't think that museums are going to change into this new thing that will be better and will serve all communities. That's not going to happen. But what I think is going to happen, or what I think should happen, is that museums need to change into a malleable thing where they're, like, I like to think of it like Wikipedia almost, where it's like, not like it's like some like anarchy of editing or something, but where it is like a Wikipedia page doesn't just get finished, published, and then never change again.
Yeah.
It changes and updates because it's a living subject.
Yeah.
Or even if it's literally a dead person, it's a living document that is susceptible and open to change with the changing opinion, knowledge, and information gained about this subject. Like, and I think that's what a museum should be like.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't know, man. Like, because I don't think, like, and I say that to emphasize the fact that I don't think it's not ever, no, like, it's not going to be like, we have a rainbow flag now, we're good, or like, we did one show about this type of thing, or like, you know, it's never going to be a one-time thing
that's just done.
And now we're good now. We're happy. We ended prejudice and discrimination. Like, that's not going to happen. I'm joking about it, but like, it's going to be a thing where like it's going to be a thing, like, as if I fucking know. But I'm saying, like, I think it should be turn into, like, it should be
more intentional and more systemic, maybe.
Well, no, I think they should define themselves by their ability to change. Where it's like, well, I don't want to go in, like it should be something that is constantly changing and reflecting on itself.
Well, another thing too, forgive me because I forget who said this to us, but we did have a slight conversation about this with one of the interviews that we did recently, and it was over the phone. I'm not remembering who said this offhand, but what will cause that change are also changes in the people that are in charge of places like museums, like who the curators are, who the department coordinators are, who the administrators are, and maybe it's people that are speaking from their own lived experience of their own stories and their own cultures. Like, more people of color, more women, more queer people being involved in the administration of those spaces, it's going to be a much more natural move than just, like, some flex exhibitions, you know?
Yeah.
And that is changing. That is happening. And it's a really exciting thing to see happen.
Or, yeah, in this very moment, we have witnessed, or through this series, we have been able to witness an example of a small group of people trying to contribute to that cultural change. And I'm sure maybe there's some criticisms to be made about it. Maybe, and you know, we know that the MFA isn't perfect. I don't know. But what we got to see and what we got to experience through these conversations and this whole event that we were able to bear witness to, I think I've been really impressed. And maybe I'm impressed because I'm a fucking outsider, because I don't know what the fuck is going on. Maybe I think this is sick because I'm an idiot. I don't know. But outsider. What I'm, like, from this field, like, I'm not like a curator. I'm not a fucking, I don't have a master's degree in library science. Like, I'm just fucking chilling. Yeah. Like, I'm just here for the fun, I guess, you know. But what I've gotten to vibe with has been great.
And that's another thing too that we actually had a short conversation with Shanoa Baker about, is that maybe the goal or part of the goal is also to make these conversations not something you have to be qualified to speak on. Because if these places are supposed to be connecting people, like the average person can walk in and learn something, there shouldn't be any kind of barrier to that. You shouldn't need to be a curator to weigh in or have an opinion.
Yeah.
I think that's true right now, you know? And those spaces should be more comfortable, and people should feel comfortable critiquing them and being part of them and being involved in this change. And I think something that might just be a barrier to that is that maybe the way it is right now is that a lot of people don't see museums this way. Like, they don't... It's kind of a niche... Like, it's like self-read right now, but it's kind of a niche geek thing to be really passionate about. And I think that can and will change.
Yeah, and that's something that I've been trying to check myself on a little bit throughout all this. Is that, like for example, I know that, like, when I post about museums on my social media,
yeah,
it gets very little engagement. And people who, like, it kind of gives me the feeling that the audience that I have, it's like not really something that, because that's the thing, is I think museums have the reputation of being a dusty place.
Yeah.
Where ancient objects are, and they don't ever get moved.
Yeah.
And they just stay there, and it is what it is. And it's like, okay, I can go see a painting of St. Francis from 1470.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, but whatever. I don't need to do that.
And the reality is, a lot of people have been in museum spaces only in the context of, like, a school assignment, or, like, you were brought there with your family, or you're on, like, some field trip for, like, American history or something like that. Like, it's already a subset of people when you're talking about people that go to museums for fun and for education on their own. But I don't think that has to be that way. I think maybe that's part of the, like, big industry-wide rebrand of being welcoming to the average person, because that is part of the responsibility of an educational facility. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't know either, yeah.
But I feel like I have so many half-baked thoughts about it that have been rattling around my head since we did the series. But, well,
half-baked's a little bit critical. But
well, I don't know. I don't have a conclusion to any of them, but we're working on it.
And that's the thing, is that it is kind of... It is a mistake to think of anything as a conclusion. Like, I had a professor one time that was teaching our class about artist statements, or like theses, or like the ideas behind concept. Like, when you create the idea of creating a concept behind an artwork. And one thing he said, I don't know, he's just some fucking guy too, so maybe this is stupid, but like, you know, he said that it's like you should never make a piece of art or an artist statement that is an answer. You should never make a piece of art that says like you can't make it like the solution to like the ultimate truth of what it's like to be queer. Or like, this is what we need to do about poverty.
Yeah.
Or like, I wrote a book about how to end homelessness. It's like, not that those aren't admirable ideas, but it's like, it's folks, like, I guess highlighting the fact that you don't know,
it's too definitive.
You can't be, there is no definitive anything. Like,
yeah.
But he was instead saying that you want to make an investigation of an idea, or ask a question about an idea.
I like that.
Or raise a new or make an observation about something, rather than being like, here is the answer. Here is the fucking, I solved it.
Yeah.
I figured out, you know what I mean? And it's like, I don't know, like, I carry that with me sometimes, because occasionally I might feel inclined to make some art or content that is social commentary or political commentary, or is about a divisive issue. And it's important, if you want to take that path or make some shit like that, and not to be some bumbling
fucking
idiot that thinks you have all the answers, because you don't.
Well, here's another thing too, in terms of just like the function of that. If you are making art that is exploratory, what you're doing is raising a question. And if someone has a rebuttal, that's going to lead to more conversation. And even if they don't agree with your initial point, if your goal was to get people thinking about this concept, you have accomplished it. But if you are making a statement and someone looks at it and goes, that's fucking stupid, they leave. They just think you're stupid and they leave and they don't think about it anymore. But if you have an open-ended argument, or an open-ended, even if it's just a question, that might stick with that person, and that might lead to maybe more artwork, maybe more discussion, maybe change.
Right. The idea of fostering dialogue is more valuable than trying to propagate like just one statement that you are the author of.
Well, you don't have to be the guy that fixed it. And if you are, you should go into politics. You shouldn't make a painting about it. You should go solve homelessness if you have the answer already.
If you have the answer, why are you making a painting? Right? Go fucking figure it out, you dick. Oh, jeez.
And I think that's actually really interesting to think about in terms of curation and museums and stuff, too, because maybe that is also what these exhibitions should be. Like, maybe the reason why just having a one-off show is bullshit is because, yeah, that might connect with people, but then it ends, and then the institution is unchanged. But if you're continuously exploring these concepts or these cultures or just representing lifestyles that aren't just targeted to one demographic, that's going to make it interesting for those people to keep coming back, to keep participating in these spaces, and for their cultural history to be documented, for artists from different backgrounds to actually contribute to the space, or to be allowed to, because I don't think there's anybody who'd say no to fucking putting their art in a museum. Like, I don't know. I think that it is much more meaningful to have it be a continuous conversation, and it serves more of a purpose.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because going back to the beginning of our conversation where it's like we were talking about, you know, these super high-end artworks aren't the only art world. Museums aren't the only art world. The sale of marble sculptures or something like there is no one thing.
Yeah.
And that's another thing to consider too, is that like you know like maybe you don't even have to be a part of this dialogue game.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it is. I don't fucking know. Like it's so unbelievably new. Like there's so many sides to it that it's a flat plane. Like it isn't even a fucking it's so fucking nuanced that it's too abstract to understand. Like it's just there's just so much to fucking see and understand that you really can. It's like, I don't fucking know, but it's just fucking crazy, and we don't know shit. We're just people that are just fucking around and finding out and asking questions and shit. And it's fucking so rewarding, you know, because like, I don't know, it just feels good. I don't know, man.
Oh, man.
I'm at the gas station because... I
was wondering why we've been sitting at a gas pump.
It's because I've been on E for this entire episode.
Oh my god. Yeah. Alright. Well, it's been an hour. Maybe we should just...
Yeah, man. I mean, is this a good place to leave this? Because we, you know, for the listener, we decided to make this episode because we felt like we needed to debrief from the series.
Yeah.
We needed to, like, now that we have completed this 7-part series on touching roots, that we can now move on to, and don't worry, guys, if you've been really enjoying this series, we plan to maintain a similar quality. At least in our...
We're going to keep trying really hard.
We're going to keep trying. We're going to continue being stupid, because something that longtime listeners will probably note about the Touching Roots series is that we definitely really, really toned down
how fucking dumb we are.
Yeah, we tried really hard not to look stupid. And, like, I was trying not to, like, say fuck or, like, ask dumb questions or something. Like, I tried to keep it very profesh and smart. You know what I mean? I don't know if I did that. But it's just not because I felt, like, bad about the way that, you know, that. But I just wanted to be respectful of these people's stations and experience and to make some good stuff that anybody could enjoy, you know?
We were also a little scared.
We were also very afraid of these people because we didn't fucking know, because we feel like dumbasses. So when we talk to people who are really accomplished, we feel afraid that they'll think we're dumbasses or something.
None of them made us feel that way, though.
None of them.
For the record.
They were all lovely.
Wonderful conversations. They're lovely people.
Yeah. What a fucking amazing experience. But yeah, so that was the point of this episode, was to unwind from that and to keep going. Maybe we'll do another project with a museum.
Yeah, if you're a museum and you like us, hit me up.
Or if you're a gallery, if you operate a gallery, or you are a gallerist, or you are affiliated with an arts organization, and there's a group of people you're fucking around with or something, like, let us loose. Put us in there. We'll interview everybody. And we'll make a great thing.
We should stop asking.
Well, I'm not asking. I'm just saying, like, I think this has opened up a really interesting format.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, because actually, I'm getting way too into the background of what happened.
Yeah.
Never mind. Let's not go in deep with correspondence or whatever.
I really do like interviewing, though, and I think that's something that was a real challenge for us, because I think that, hopefully it comes across a little bit, but I think we've really grown as interviewers. At least incrementally, in the sense that we usually interview people who we have some kind of idea of what their vibe is. Like, we've maybe talked to them before. We have some idea about what they're talking about. We are probably on a similar level to them or make similar work to them. Like, we know what questions to ask. So something that put me, at least, really out of my depth was talking to somebody about something. Like, people that have PhDs in something hyper-specific that I know nothing about, and not even knowing what questions to ask. Like, what would even be a smart question?
Yeah.
That, I think, was really cool in terms of learning, obviously. Like, that was just sick. But also, in terms of learning how to roll with an interview and keep asking... Like, the listener listening to our episode doesn't have the ability to ask these questions. We are in a really exciting position of being that conduit, and it was an honor to do that. But I didn't want to waste it. Yeah. So I think we had to kind of learn on our toes to get better at navigating that, so that we could ask what was important and also know when to just stop asking, because we don't have... Like, I don't want to ask stupid questions. Like, at some point you have to just shut up and let the person tell you what they know. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I don't know. I think that was something that was exciting, because in the past we've done mostly episodes with us and then 1 or 2 interviews here and there for every couple months or something. And for this, we slammed all of those in the course of like a week and a half, in the middle of doing a bunch of other stuff, like day job stuff and whatever. And it's not scary anymore to think about doing that. Like, I feel more equipped to interview people. Like, the main hard part for me is getting someone to say yes at this point. And as soon as they do, I'm ready to rock, which is not really the case before. So that was cool.
Yeah. Damn, man. There's just one scene from Ozark that's so unrelated to everything you just said. That made me think of it.
Love that.
But one of the characters, Wendy, meets with like this like piece of shit like investor or something guy who's like this like real like hard-nosed, mean old guy. And she goes into the meeting and just like rips the guy's face off and just like does this like she just tears it up and gets what she wants out of it.
Uh-huh.
But she says after it, she's like, there was a time in my life where that man, or where I would have been more afraid of that man than anything in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think about that sometimes. This is such a horrible anecdote. But I'm such a fucking idiot for bringing this up. Anyway. But it's kind of
another Brian's not allowed to talk shit about themselves episode.
Oh, fuck off. I'm just excited. Well, no, I guess it's just interesting, like, it's just crazy how this shit works incrementally. Anyway. Yeah. Fuck it. Why do I have to bring up Ozark?
You do that sometimes. We're
bring
an
up Ozark?
Fan podcast.
I like Ozark. It was a good show. Shout out to Jason Bateman.
I haven't seen Ozark.
Is that his name?
I don't know. I haven't seen Ozark.
He's an actor.
I have to take a shower.
I have to pee.
I want to watch Dead to Me.
Oh yeah, Dead to Me season 3. Shout out to Christina Applegate.
And Linda Cardellini.
Produced by Will Ferrell. All right. Well, that's it for this episode, guys. We currently have some shit in the queue, some great interviews that are gonna blow your fucking minds. So stick around for that shit.
Thanks for listening to Boston Art Podcast, Boston's premier art podcast.
Do we say that in the intro?
We have an outro, but I recorded it and never listened to it again, so I don't know what it is.
Well, it's just...
I know that it's like, whatever I said on here is not my job's concern. Thank you.
Whatever
Bye.
we said on here doesn't count. It doesn't count. Don't think about it anymore.
No similarities to any person, living or dead, including me.
Shit, there's a guy behind me waiting for the pump. I've been wasting this asshole's time. All right. Good night. Bye-bye.
Boston Art Podcast is an independent DIY production by Brian Huntress and Theodora Earthworms. The information contained in this episode represents the views and opinions of the original creators or our guests, and does not represent any institution, organization, or business. Find us on Instagram at Boston Art Podcast, and tune in for a new episode every Friday. Thank you for listening.